Teachers. Force a simple woman to play a difficult piano piece, unaware. She is a piano virtuoso. Maybe next time, try something simpler, the music instructor said loudly as the other teachers chuckled. He slid a sheet of music across the dusty piano bench toward Maria, a quiet woman in her early 50s. The piece was brutal. Rapid notes, impossible timing, a clear setup for failure. If you believe true talent never needs permission to shine, subscribe now, because what happened next stunned the entire room. Maria adjusted her cardigan, her hands slightly trembling, not from fear, but from memories she had buried long ago. Around her, a few students smirked, whispering behind their sheet music. To them, she was just another charity case, an older woman with a plain face, calloused fingers, and nothing special to offer. They assumed she was there to waste time, to humiliate herself trying. No one bothered to ask why she was in the conservatory's open audition in the first place. The head instructor, Mr. Calloway, leaned back smugly. "Go ahead, Maria. Show us what you can do." Maria's eyes met his for a brief moment. Not with anger, not even with sadness, only patience. She tucked a strand of gray-streaked hair behind her ear, placed her worn fingers on the ivory keys, and took a deep breath. In that single breath, the entire room held its laughter, because Maria's story was about to begin, and none of them were ready for what was coming. Maria pressed the first key, and a soft, haunting note filled the silent room. It was not the clumsy start the teachers had expected. It was precise, measured, as if the piano itself recognized her touch. The instructors exchanged glances. Mr. Calloway frowned, arms crossed tightly. The students stopped whispering. A few leaned forward, puzzled. Maria's fingers moved to the next keys, not with the hesitation of a novice, but with the ease of someone revisiting an old, familiar language. The difficult piece they had handed her, intended to embarrass, began to take shape under her fingertips. Her left hand anchored the complex bass line while her right danced across the melody. The tempo increased. Each note flowed effortlessly into the next. The sheet music rested untouched beside her. She did not need it. She had memorized this piece decades ago, though none of them knew. By the third measure, the smirks had vanished. Mr. Calloway's pen slipped from behind his ear and landed on the desk. No one moved to pick it up. All eyes were locked on Maria. Even the janitor paused mid-sweep, gripping his broom handle like a staff, eyes wide. Maria's closed eyes and gentle swaying revealed not nerves, but immersion. She was not reading music. She was speaking through it. And yet none of them had asked the most obvious question. Why had a simple woman, with no formal enrollment and no visible credentials, walked into an elite conservatory and requested to play? Because sometimes people with the greatest stories do not announce them. They let the music tell it. And Maria's story was just starting to sing. As the piece climbed into its most demanding passage, Maria's hands moved with a speed and precision that should have been impossible for someone her age, or for someone who, according to the instructor's assumptions, barely knew how to read music. A young teacher named Claire leaned toward Mr. Calloway, her voice barely above a whisper. "She is playing Liszt's La Campanella. That is a conservatory-level competition piece. Even most of our advanced students cannot play it without months of preparation." Mr. Calloway's confident posture stiffened. She must have practiced that one piece obsessively, a trick to fool us. But deep down, he knew this was no trick. Maria did not slow. Her left foot pressed the sustain pedal gracefully, blending the notes into a shimmering cascade. Each phrase told a story, not just of technical skill but of experience. Loss, triumph, quiet defiance. One by one, the students lowered their sheet music. Phones were drawn discreetly to record what they realized could be a once-in-a-lifetime moment. A familiar face appeared at the back of the room. Mr. Holloway, the retired head of the conservatory. He leaned on his cane, watching silently, recognition dawning on his lined face. The older man whispered to no one in particular, "I know those hands." Mr. Calloway glanced back, confused. "You know her?" Holloway nodded. "Decades ago, there was a prodigy, a young woman from a working-class family who stunned every judge in the state. She could not afford to attend the conservatory full-time, so she disappeared after winning regional championships. I never forgot the sound of her playing." He pointed slowly toward the piano. "That is her." Mr. Calloway's face drained of color. The woman he had tried to humiliate was not some amateur. She was once the school's greatest lost talent, and now she was reclaiming the stage they had denied her. The final soaring notes of La Campanella echoed through the hall, lingering like the last words of a powerful speech. Maria lifted her fingers from the keys and rested them gently in her lap. The room was silent. No applause, no laughter, just stunned, breathless quiet. Then, as if awakening from a spell, one of the youngest students began clapping softly. Another joined. Soon the entire room stood, applauding, not politely but with raw, overwhelming respect. Mr. Calloway remained frozen, hands flat on his desk, eyes locked on Maria as if seeing her for the first time. The humiliation he had prepared had unraveled completely. Mr. Holloway, the retired master, stepped forward, tapping his cane against the polished floor. "I never thought I would hear that brilliance again," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You were Maria Bennett once, were you not?" Maria nodded quietly. "She won 3 state titles before disappearing," Holloway explained to the others. "She left, not because of lack of talent, but because of life's burdens. Family, bills, illness." Mr. Calloway's mouth opened slightly. "Why? Why would you return now?" Maria stood slowly, the dignity in her posture making her appear taller than anyone in the room. "Because for years, I believed the world had no place for someone like me. But I realized I cannot teach others to overcome their limits if I keep hiding behind mine." Her eyes softened as they swept across the students, the staff, even Mr. Calloway. "And because every gift, when silenced, becomes a regret, I am here to ensure that does not happen again. To anyone." A ripple of quiet agreement spread through the room. In one performance, Maria had not only revealed her own truth, she had exposed the bias and small-mindedness that had once pushed her, and likely others, away. But her greatest statement was still to come. As the applause quieted, Mr. Holloway turned to the assembled teachers and students. "You all owe Maria more than applause. You owe her the chance she was denied." He looked directly at Mr. Calloway, whose face was now pale, the weight of his actions finally settling in. "Your job is not to judge by appearance. It is to recognize potential wherever it hides." Mr. Calloway swallowed hard. "You are right. I was wrong. Maria, I cannot undo the disrespect I showed you, but I can offer a formal apology. And, more than that, an invitation to join our faculty." Gasps rippled through the students and instructors alike. Maria held up a hand gently. "I am not here for titles or status. I am here for the students. Many of them feel like I once did, overlooked, underestimated. I want to create a program for talented individuals who cannot afford traditional music education." Mr. Holloway smiled. "An open conservatory scholarship program?" Maria nodded. "Exactly. Talent should never be trapped by poverty or age or appearance." Students began nodding, some with tears in their eyes. Even Claire, the young instructor who had once doubted Maria, stepped forward. "I would be honored to help. We all should." Mr. Calloway, humbled, agreed. "I will back the program fully." In that moment, the room transformed from a place of judgment into a place of hope. Maria had not only proven her own worth, she had created a pathway for others to rise as well. She had come to reclaim a voice once silenced. Instead, she had given that voice to many. News of Maria's performance spread faster than anyone could have imagined. A student's video of her flawless playing, paired with the story of how she had been underestimated and then invited to reshape the conservatory, went viral overnight. Thousands of comments poured in. She is the teacher we all needed, but never had. True talent does not age. I wish someone had stood up for my mother like this when she was pushed aside. Local news outlets covered the story first. Then national morning shows picked it up. The humble Virtuoso, they called her. A simple woman who had quietly carried a master's talent while cleaning houses, working in diners, and raising 3 children. Maria's email flooded with messages from struggling music students across the country. Some had left music behind because of cost. Others had been told they were too old or too poor to pursue their dreams. Mr. Calloway, once so proud and rigid, now stood beside Maria in interviews, admitting his mistake publicly. Maria reminded us that teaching is not just about skill. It is about seeing potential where others refuse to look. The conservatory officially launched the Maria Bennett Rising Talent Scholarship. Within days, donors offered more than enough to fund it for years. But Maria was not done. She personally invited the first class of students from underserved communities to tour the school. As she showed them the grand halls and shining practice rooms, she smiled. "You belong here. Never let anyone tell you otherwise." One young girl clutched her hand tightly. "But what if people laugh at us?" Maria bent down and whispered, "Then you let your music do the talking." And in that moment, Maria knew the true masterpiece she had created was not a performance. It was a movement. As the first class of scholarship students began their lessons, Maria found herself busier than ever. She worked alongside the faculty, designing courses not only in piano performance but also in resilience, creativity, and confidence. She wanted these young musicians to grow not just as artists, but as people who could stand tall in the face of doubt. One afternoon, as she gathered sheet music in the practice hall, Maria noticed a familiar face lingering at the doorway, a woman with graying hair and a cautious smile. It was her former music teacher, Mrs. Elsner, the woman who, decades ago, had once told Maria she would never make it beyond regional competitions. Maria's breath caught for a moment, but she approached, calmly. "I heard about everything," Mrs. Elsner began, her voice soft. "I wanted to say, I was wrong back then. I saw your struggles and assumed they would drown your talent. I should have helped you, not judged you." Maria held her gaze, seeing the same lines of age and experience reflected in both their faces now. "I held on to that judgment for many years," she admitted, "but it no longer defines me." Mrs. Elsner nodded. "I do not expect forgiveness. I only wanted you to know. Seeing what you have built has changed how I teach now. You reminded me what education is supposed to be about." Maria smiled gently. "Then perhaps we both learned something." They stood quietly for a moment as music floated from a nearby practice room, a young boy working through the first lines of Clair de Lune. His hesitant notes reminded Maria of herself, long ago. But now, none of her students would face their journey alone. Maria's story had come full circle, but her mission was just beginning. Weeks later, the conservatory hosted its annual Spring Gala, a prestigious event where elite performers showcased their talents before donors, alumni, and the press. This year, however, something was different. The scholarship students, many of whom had never set foot on a formal stage before, were set to perform the opening piece. As the audience gathered, murmurs rippled through the elegant hall. Reporters whispered about Maria's story. Donors wondered if the students could truly meet the conservatory's high standards. Some skeptics still believed this new program was charity, not true artistry. Maria stood backstage with the students. She noticed their nervous glances through the curtains. "You are not here to prove yourselves to anyone," she told them gently. "You are here to share your voice. Let the music speak." The lights dimmed. The students took the stage. As they played a flawless, passionate rendition of Ode to Joy, the entire hall leaned forward, drawn in by the energy, the discipline, the raw emotion of their performance. When the last note faded, a brief hush fell. Then came thunderous applause. Not polite, not expected. Genuine, roaring appreciation. Reporters rose to their feet. Donors wiped tears from their eyes. Even the most rigid faculty members clapped with enthusiasm. But the most powerful moment came when Mr. Halloway, now fully retired but sitting in the front row, stood and raised his cane in salute. "Maria Bennett and her students," he declared, "have reminded us all what music and education should be." Maria joined the students on stage. As she stood beside them, the audience saw not just a teacher or a former prodigy. They saw a woman who had turned dismissal into dignity, and together they had changed not just one school, but the entire meaning of opportunity. As the applause echoed through the grand hall, the conservatory director approached the stage with a velvet-covered box in hand. His face, usually formal and reserved, now held a warmth that surprised even the faculty. "Maria Bennett," he announced, his voice carrying across the hushed room, "for your extraordinary talent, resilience, and for transforming the lives of countless young musicians, the board has voted unanimously to award you the Golden Key of Musical Legacy, an honor given only twice in this institution's history." The audience gasped softly. The Golden Key was not just an award. It symbolized timeless impact. Maria's eyes filled with tears, not because she sought recognition, but because of what it meant for the students beside her, for every overlooked talent watching from the shadows. As the director placed the small, ornate key in her hands, she looked out into the crowd. In the third row, she spotted Mrs. Elsner, who smiled and mouthed the words, "You deserve this." In the back, the janitor who had paused his sweeping weeks ago now stood proudly, his arms crossed, nodding with quiet respect. Reporters surged forward. Cameras flashed, but Maria raised her hand, signaling for quiet. She turned to the students beside her. "This key is not mine alone. It belongs to every student who was ever told they were too poor, too old, too simple to succeed. Let this be a message. Your value is not decided by others. It is revealed when you refuse to give up." The students gathered around her, some holding back tears, others holding hands. The applause rose again, not just for Maria's past, but for the future she had built, for others. As the gala ended and the hall slowly emptied, Maria lingered by the grand piano where it had all begun. She ran her fingers gently across the keys, not to play, but to remember. Years ago, she had walked into this conservatory seeking only a chance. That chance had been denied. Yet life had brought her back, not just to reclaim her voice, but to amplify the voices of others who had once stood where she did. The scholarship program flourished in the months that followed. Students who had once felt invisible now stood confidently at recitals, competitions, and workshops. Their music spoke of resilience, of battles fought quietly, of victories earned with grace. Even Mr. Calloway, once her harshest critic, had become her greatest ally. He worked tirelessly alongside her to ensure no student was overlooked again. One morning, as Maria prepared for another day of teaching, she received a letter in elegant handwriting. It read, "Because of you, my daughter has found her place in the world of music. You showed her that greatness comes from perseverance, not privilege. Thank you for believing in those the world forgets." A grateful parent, Maria folded the letter carefully and placed it in her drawer beside the golden key. She looked out the window at the campus where so many young musicians now flourished. Her journey had come full circle, not as a student, seeking approval, but as a mentor creating opportunity. Her silent strength had not only shattered prejudice, it had built a legacy. Moral lesson: never let others define your worth. True talent and resilience can remain silent for years, but when given the chance, they can inspire a generation. If this story inspired you, please like, comment, and subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to hear that no dream ever truly dies when perseverance leads the way.